China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi is in London for talks with the UK government.
He's met his counterpart, David Lammy, reviving the UK-China strategic dialogue, which was last held in 2018. This visit is part of a European diplomatic tour that will also include stops in Germany and Ireland.
Our correspondent Yolo Abdavid is outside Downing Street. Yolo, what else can you tell us about these talks?
I think it is hugely important for the UK government, and that's why they're having the second meeting between David Lammy and Wang Yi. They first met in China in October last year, but now they want to recalibrate the relationship. They want to try and improve international cooperation between China and the UK, and I think those comments by Wang Yi, when he talks about it, it's important that both countries actually demonstrate their responsibilities, he says, and also to practice multilateralism and support free trade. And I think that trade is something that both countries know that they can cooperate on, as well as other fields as well, like business and the economy, climate change and AI and so on. But in terms of improving the relationship, they know there are things that they disagree on, but trade is one thing, and possibly also conflicts in other parts of the world that they can agree. It's been quite a step change from the UK government. The new government voted in here last July, and the new Labour government and the new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, have obviously decided that improving ties with China is hugely important, not least because it's one of the major economies in the world, but also it has great influence internationally. And there will be a difference of opinion. They've acknowledged that. They say that there will be areas where they can cooperate. There will be areas where they will not be in agreement with China. But I think on the whole, definitely, this reboot of the relationship is seen as very, very important between the two foreign secretaries, and that may lead to more meetings between the two leaders, because they did meet in November last year in the G20 in Brazil, and Keir Starmer and Xi Jinping had their first meeting, and that was the first meeting between the respective leaders of both countries since 2018. So, yes, it's important.
And the UK government's made improving ties with China one of its foreign policy goals.
And there's a good reason for that, Robin, because it's mostly about trade. Don't forget, this new government, when it came in, has said that it wants to improve growth in terms of the UK economy. It wants to improve business here. And the one way to do that is with trade. Now, last year, the trade between both countries was to the value of 110 billion US dollars. That's actually down about 13%, I think, from the previous year. So there's work to be done, but it's also something that both countries can agree on. So it's important on that, because whether it's the financial services, whether it's food and agriculture and other services, whether it's banking here, and the fact that despite all the huge changes in Britain, really in the last 8-9 years, with Brexit, COVID, and of course unrest and war in Eastern Europe and in the Middle East, it's very, very important now for Britain outside the EU to actually stand and have these different kinds of relationships, and China definitely is seen as quite important in that regards. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there'll be things that they disagree on. There'll be issues on Hong Kong. There'll be issues on Taiwan, on the Uyghurs, on Tibet, that they'll be pressurized. This government will be under pressure here to ask questions, also on cybersecurity. But on the whole, it seems that this government has decided there has to be a change, especially from the previous Conservative governments and 5 prime ministers in a very short space of time, where at times the relationship between the UK and China was seen as muddled and not quite as clear as it should be, perhaps.
Yolo, thank you very much. Our correspondent Yolo Abdavid in Downing Street.
Gerald Lyons is a senior independent director at the Bank of China in the UK.